3 palaces. The Alhambra Palace in Granada, Spain. The Alhambra was the home of Spain's last Muslim rulers, the Nasrid dynasty. Much of what remains today was built between 1350 and 1400. The carved stucco decoration of the Alhambra was once richly painted and gilded. The walls were covered with colourful tilework decorated with intricate repeating designs. Silk curtains and other textiles added more colour and pattern. The palace buildings are arranged around open courtyards. The buildings around one of these, the Court of the Myrtles, were used to receive important visitors. A pool runs the length of the courtyard, and reflected in it is the tower of the Hall of the Ambassadors. Inside this hall, out of the bright sunlight, the light is filtered and formed into patterns by the screens across the windows. A second courtyard is the Court of the Lions. This was a private garden for the Sultan and his household. Here, a large central fountain is supported by carved stone lions. The Sultan's apartments also included the Hall of the Two Sisters. Its amazingly complex ceiling resembles a delicate lacy honeycomb. Three palaces. The Topkapi Palace in Istanbul, Turkey. The Topkapi Palace sits on top of a hill, with views across the sea on two sides. It was founded in 1459. The palace remained the official residence of the Ottoman sultans for nearly 400 years. High walls surround the palace. The imposing main gateway has gilded calligraphy above its high arched entrance. It gives access to the gardens, courtyards and pavilions within the palace grounds. The Sultan's officials rode out through this gate to rule his empire or fight his enemies, as depicted in paintings of the time. Visitors who entered this first gate were faced with two more grand gateways as they progressed towards the heart of the palace. The second gate resembles a medieval castle with its battlements and turrets. It leads into the courtyard, where official business was conducted below the Tower of Justice. At the beginning of his reign, the Sultan received oaths of allegiance in this courtyard. A painting of the 1550s shows one of the Sultan's officials making his oath of allegiance. He kneels before the Sultan with his hands clasped and his head bowed. Only the very privileged were allowed through the third gate. Beyond this gate is a richly decorated pavilion where ambassadors were presented to the Sultan. In this private area beyond the third gate were the women's quarters and the pavilions and terraces reserved for male guests of the Sultan. A gilded canopy and pavilions faced with marble and tilework look out over the sea and the teeming city beyond. One of the ceremonies conducted in these private quarters was the circumcision of the Sultan's sons. In a painting from the 1720s, the young princes are shown in their beds, while in the centre, the Sultan scatters gold coins at the feet of his attendants. The walls of one terrace are covered with tiles with different designs based on plants. Most are painted in a vibrant combination of blue, green and red on a white background. Three palaces. The palace complex in Isfahan, Iran. Isfahan became the capital of Iran around 1600. A huge palace complex was built here. Two of the best preserved buildings stand close to one another. One building is the Ali Kapı, or High Gate. The lower part of the building has a brick facade with areas of coloured tilework. there is a great arched entrance at the centre. Above it is a large balcony, the roof of which is supported by slender wooden columns. The Ali Kapı looks out onto a vast square, now called the Meydan-e-Emam. Today, an enormous rectangular pool dominates the square, surrounded by formal gardens. At the top of the Ali Kapı is the music room. The curving upper walls are pierced by rows of small niches, some shaped like bottles with long necks. The room is lit from above by windows set just below the elaborate ceiling. Beyond the Ali Kapı is another long pool, lined with trees on either side. At the far end of the pool is the pavilion of Chihil Sutun, its image reflected in the still, clear water. At the front of the pavilion is a large and impressive portico. Its high roof is supported by tall wooden columns. At the centre of the portico are 4 stylized lions carved in stone. They form the bases of 4 more columns, which surround a shallow pool set into the marble floor. Beyond the portico is a magnificent central hall. Here, almost every inch of the walls and vaulted ceiling has fine painted decoration. On the walls there are large scenes with figures. These include depictions of court receptions. In one, the king sits at the centre, flanked by the male members of his court. The courtiers, some with beards and some with impressive moustaches, sit on carpets, while dancers and musicians perform for their pleasure. Wine and fruit will soon be served for their refreshment. Mosques of the Middle East. The Umayyad Mosque in Damascus, Syria. The ancient Umayyad Mosque was completed by the year 715. A large courtyard paved with marble is surrounded by arcades. The arcade on one side leads to the prayer hall. The mosaic decoration on the walls of the arcades is more than 1,000 years old. The designs have a brilliant gold background. The mosaics are also found on the old treasury in the centre of the courtyard, a small domed structure raised on 8 columns. Mosques of the Middle East. The Masgid-e-Imam in Isfahan, Iran. Fountains play outside the Masgid-e-Imam in Isfahan. It was begun in 1611 and was originally called the Masjid-e-Shah. Almost every surface of the building is covered with patterned tilework, even the 2 high towers called minarets. The magnificent decoration of the mosque includes bold tilework inscriptions containing holy texts. These and other designs are reflected in the large pool in the middle of the great courtyard. On each side of the courtyard is a vaulted space called an Iwan. Mosques of the Middle East. The Süleymaniye Mosque in Istanbul, Turkey. The Süleymaniye Mosque in Istanbul was completed in 1557. The mosque is covered by a huge central dome. Below the dome, the light enters the mosque through a series of arched and circular windows. Like all mosques, the Süleymaniye has a mihrab, the niche that indicates the direction of prayer.